letter I have is this one that you had to rush. Is that your testimony?
I have not been asked to prepare a report, so you're correct.
I guess a couple days' time, is that fair? That you were asked to analyze the case and then provided this letter? Was that about 2 days? Is that accurate?
Well, I had more than 2 days to read the number of reports that were sent. There were a number of expert reports.
So how long a period of time, roughly?
I think it's vague. I think you need to find the question.
What is the 2-day reference referring to?
That was the time from when Mr. Flanagan contacted me and told me they needed something in writing, I think was the words, not a formal report, just some preliminary thoughts on the materials that I had looked at.
So he asked you to put your thoughts in writing, and it took about 2 days, and then you gave him this letter that was turned over in discovery. Is that your testimony?
No, I did not say it took 2 days. He just told me he needed something in writing within a couple of days. So there was some time frame, a short time frame to get it done. I had other activities that I was involved in. So,
and of course, I mean, you knew it was part of discovery in this case, right? You knew this was a pending criminal case, right? You knew you were being consulted by the defense as an expert, and they asked you to put your findings in writing, correct?
I didn't know the details of the case in that regard. I was asked to render a preliminary opinion or thoughts based on some expert reports I was given.
Is there anything in here where you say these are my preliminary thoughts or my preliminary opinion? Is that stated anywhere in your March 8th, 2011 letter?
As I stated,
is that stated anywhere in your March 8th, 2011 letter?
Sir, I haven't looked at that letter in some time, so I'd have to review it in detail.
Okay. May I approach the witness room? May you read this to yourself silently?
Today is October 31st, 2011. Dr. White has been cornered and pickled in his own words. And I don't think Dr. White's going to enjoy it. He's being discredited here by Prosecutor David Walgren. His own words, his own letter being used against him. At this point, it appears Dr. White is just trying to save some dignity.
Have you had a chance to review it?
Yes, I have.
Does anywhere in your letter dated March 8, 2011, does anywhere in there, does it say that this is just your preliminary thoughts, preliminary opinions?
I didn't use the word preliminary, but I also did not...
Is the answer that no, it's not in there?
That exact word I don't think is in there. I didn't find that word in there, but I also didn't find the word saying it was oral administration. I said self-administration orally or parenterally.
Right, you said both.
Either or.
Quoting, "It is my opinion that Mr. Jackson self-administered these drugs intravenously and or orally." Correct?
That sounds correct, yes.
There's nothing characterizing that as simply preliminary finding or something you're going to supplement later on, is there? It says it's your opinion that Michael Jackson self-administered either intravenously or orally, correct?
Correct, based on the information that I had been able to review in the short time prior to writing a letter to Mr. Flanagan, yes.
And the information you reviewed, I believe you said on direct examination, you did a word search for, I believe, and if I'm misstating, please correct me, you did a word search for oral propofol, and that didn't come up with the piglet study, and then you wrote your report. I mean, was there other research that you did regarding oral propofol before you put this in writing?
I don't believe so. I did send an email to Dr. Ian Glenn in the UK, but I'd have to check my computer to see exactly when I sent that email.
But your recollection as you're here today is you did a word search for oral propofol, and it didn't come up with anything?
I didn't find anything, even in animals. So that's why I called Dr. Glenn, who I knew had performed some early animal studies, and I thought he might be able to provide me some information.
Well, in fact, he told you it was not orally bioavailable.
That was months after I.
Okay, I understand that. I'm talking about what type of research you did before putting this in writing. You did a word search for oral propofol, and you didn't find anything. Is that accurate?
And I looked at the autopsy report, which showed propofol in the stomach, the gastric contents.
Okay.
And
is that anything else? As far as your opinion, you said, it's my opinion that Mr. Jackson self-administered these drugs intravenously and or orally. As far as the issue of propofol being orally bioavailable from a scientific point of view, did you do any other research other than doing a word search for oral propofol?
well, later, yeah, we
Prior
commissioned.
to putting in writing your opinion, did you do any other research on the science of the oral bioavailability of propofol?
I could not find any scientific information.
So you had no scientific information and wrote this report stating that it was your opinion that he either orally ingested or self-administered propofol, correct?
I was just trying to cover all the possibilities, and since there was nothing to the contrary in the literature and it had not been studied, I just thought it was appropriate to leave open the possibilities, and that included giving additional propofol either intravenously or orally. I didn't
And
want
Mr. Flanagan directly requested that you comment on oral propofol prior to writing that letter, correct?
I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what you mean by commented on it.
Mr. Flanagan raised the issue to you so that you would address it in your letter dated March 8th, 2011, correct?
Yes, I think if what you meant by he mentioned that there was some discussion of this with the coroner, I believe, Mr. Rogers, and...
Oh, can you reference that? Where's that? Where's that?
I'd have to look at Mr. Rogers' interview, I guess, to find it.
Okay. You want to see the autopsy report and point out to me where he says oral propofol is a viable option?
Yeah, stating the witness regarding the difference between transcript and...
All right, the objection sustained. I think we need to be on the same page. You can refine the question. Sustained.
Mr. Flanagan raised the issue of oral propofol to you prior to writing your March 8th, 2011 report. Is that correct?
Yes, he asked me...
Okay. He raised the issue. Thank you. And you said now here today that you wrote it because you wanted to list or essentially provide all the possibilities. Is that accurate?
Well, I wanted to list possibilities that seemed reasonable, yes.
Yeah. And the two possibilities you came up with put the blame, in your mind, squarely on the deceased victim, correct?
Well, if Dr. Murray had only given the 25 milligrams that he claims to have given, there had to be some other factor that contributed to Mr. Jackson's demise.
In your March 8th, 2011 letter, the only two options you came up with were you blamed it on Michael Jackson for possibly orally ingesting, and you blamed it on Michael Jackson for possibly self-administering, correct? Those are the two options you came up with, correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
And since that time, you've rejected oral propofol, and now you've come up with a new theory to say that Michael Jackson did it himself, correct?
Sustained.
Well, did you mention that Michael Jackson swallowed 8 2-milligram lorazepam pills in your March 8th, 2011 letter?
No, because at that time I had not had time to really analyze the lorazepam levels until my colleague Dr. Schaefer provided his report, which I think was in mid-April.
And so that's a new theory that you came up with that followed the March 8th, 2011 letter, correct?
It's not a new theory. It's just, I guess, represents a more in-depth look at all the information available. The theory still is that the death was a result of a rapid IV injection of propofol.
Have you ever put forth a theory other than, in your mind, blaming it on Michael Jackson himself?
Well, if you're asking if I believe what Dr. Murray stated, I did take his word that he administered 25 milligrams of propofol because the prior night he had been trying to wean Mr. Jackson from propofol.
Right. So you took everything Conrad Murray said as the truth, right, in your evaluation?
Well, I certainly...
Yes or no?
Okay, yes.
Okay. And the theories you've revealed to us are that Michael Jackson orally ingested. You've rejected that now. You had said Michael Jackson self-administered. That's still one of your theories, correct?
Yes.
And you've now, based on your further review, also attribute lorazepam to being consumed by Michael Jackson self-ingesting, correct?
Yes, since the
So have you
level...
come up with any theories, as you've consulted with the defense, have you come up with any theories other than attributing the drug intake to Michael Jackson himself?
The theories that I've come up with are not based on what I've been told by the defense attorneys. They're based on my interpretation of the data.
Did you understand my question, Dr. White?
I guess not. Can you
Okay,
restate it?
Sure. Did you come up with any theory from your initial evaluation to today's data? Have you come up with any theory other than attributing the drug intake to Michael Jackson himself, either orally or self-ingestion, and either propofol or lorazepam? Have you put forth any other theory?
I don't believe so.
Are you concerned in your review of Conrad Murray's statement to the police whether or not Conrad Murray had provided all the information that he knew to the police?
Your Honor, that calls for...
I must sustain the objection. It's vague and ambiguous.
Well, you indicated previously that, in your opinion, Conrad Murray failed to disclose to the paramedics in UCLA that he administered propofol because it was something he overlooked, correct?
I think I said that was a possibility.
And I think you conceded that another possibility was he was simply lying, correct?
That's always a possibility, yes.
So did that, you still, as you've, just so we know what the basis of your opinion is, when you read Dr. Murray's statement to the police, you take everything he says in there as the truth, correct?
Regarding the drug administration, yes. And I might add that's because it's consistent, in my opinion, with the toxicology and the
We'll get to that.
physical
Yeah,
information.
we'll get to that, Dr. White.
Well, you're asking me if it's a correct quote, and it's not that I suggest you would do anything other than
May I
quote it
approach the
directly.
witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm going to reference you to your own article on propofol on page 119. And you see where I'm pointing here?
Yeah.
Is that an accurate quotation from your article?
It's not completely accurate. Do you see, e.g.,
You want to read it straight from the book?
well, it says monitored anesthesia care is perhaps...
Well, we need you to read it loudly and slowly, please.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
Monitored anesthesia care is perhaps the purest form of IV anesthesia, varying from minimal sedation, for example, patient-controlled sedation, to profound deep sedation, for example, TIVA, which is total intravenous anesthesia.
And then the next sentence.
During these procedures, patients are monitored to ensure their safety and comfort during the operation.
Thank you. So monitored anesthesia care is perhaps the purest form of IV anesthesia, varying from minimal sedation to profound deep sedation. Do you agree with that statement that's in your article?
That's what I suggested in this article, correct?
And that puts forth the proposition that the level of care required by MAC would apply to minimal sedation.
I think if you
Correct.
can, during an operation, as I show on this slide. Or you
And I
show.
ask you again then, are you saying lesser care is required if propofol is just being given absent a procedure?
I'm just merely pointing out what this article refers to, and I would like my quotes, if it's possible, to be given in the context,
Okay,
not
but you-
out of the context.